On a blazing July morning in 1187, two armies stepped into the desert, but only one would survive the sun. This is the moment the Crusaders realized, too late, that they weren't fighting Saladin, they were fighting the land itself. Stay with me till the end, because the moment that destroys the Crusader army doesn't happen on the battlefield. It happens long before a single sword is drawn. For months, Saladin has been uniting the Muslim world under a single banner, a force the Crusaders have never faced at full strength. His armies move with discipline. His strategy is precise.
The Franks will move south by dawn. Send the cavalry wide around the dunes. We must cut off their water supply.
And his goal is clear: Jerusalem. Meanwhile, inside the Crusader kingdom, fear grows. King Guy of Lusignan sits on a throne divided by rival lords, jealous commanders, and political tension. But when Saladin strikes the fortress city of Tiberias,
South Tower. Don't let them scale the ladders.
the Crusader High Council gathers.
Pass or lose the city.
Your plan is madness, boy. We are already stretched too thin.
They know the danger. They know the heat. They know the desert crossing could kill their men before the enemy even arrives. Then comes the warning. Raymond of Tripoli, one of the most experienced commanders alive, stands before the king and says,
We should not march. The desert will kill us.
but pride, fear, and pressure from the war-hungry nobles twist the decision.
And our walls will not hold. We must march.
Despite the pleas of their wisest general, the Crusaders vote to march. And with that single decision, the road to Hattin begins. The Crusader army sets out under a merciless sun. Thousands of armored knights, foot soldiers, and camp followers trudge through the dusty plains. The desert is not just empty land. It is an enemy in itself. Heat scorches their skin. Dust fills their lungs. Water runs low. Morale sinks with every step. Saladin's cavalry watches from a distance, harassing the Crusaders at every turn. A sudden cloud of arrows forces them to scatter. Small skirmishes flare. Exhaustion grows. The lords begin to whisper among themselves.
Breaking. We must reach the water by nightfall, or all is lost.
Yet, the army pushes forward, blinded by pride, duty, and fear of dishonor. By nightfall, they find no oasis, no relief, only the haunting silhouette of the twin hills of Hattin on the horizon. The stage is set. The trap waits silently, ready to close. The Crusader army, already weakened by the scorching desert march, finally reached the twin hills of Hattin. But arrival offered no relief, only a terrifying sight. Before them lay the enemy, encircling them with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Saladin's forces had anticipated every step. The trap was complete. The desert, once a neutral expanse, had been turned into a battlefield of fire, smoke, and chaos. The air was heavy with heat and the stench of dust. Thirst clawed at the throats of the Crusaders. Knights, usually the picture of courage and strength, wiped sweat from their brows, feeling the weight of their armor as if it had doubled. Foot soldiers staggered, their feet blistered and bleeding from the harsh terrain. Every step forward felt like wading through invisible resistance. The desert itself had become an enemy. From the ridges and hidden valleys, Saladin's archers emerged like shadows. Arrows fell in deadly arcs, striking men and horses alike. Screams echoed across the plains as knights toppled from their saddles and infantrymen were pierced by relentless volleys. Each arrow that hit was a reminder of how unprepared the Crusaders were for the desert and the enemy combined. Saladin's men moved silently across the hills, carrying bundles of dry grass. The sun beat down mercilessly, and a dry wind whispered through the valley, perfect for what was about to come. With precise timing, the grass was piled and ignited, flames leaping eagerly into the air. Smoke twisted and coiled, drifting toward the trapped Crusader army, searing their eyes and lungs. The desert, already an enemy, now became a furnace. Men screamed, horses panicked.
Bliss! My eyes! I can't see!
and dust mixed with smoke to form a choking haze. The flames were more than fire. They were a weapon, turning the battlefield into a living nightmare. King Guy of Lusignan tried to maintain control, shouting orders above the din, his voice a desperate attempt to rally his troops. But authority falters when men are collapsing beside you, dehydrated and suffocating. Even the noblest knights felt panic creeping in as the trap closed around them. Morale, already fragile, began to crumble. The army's pride, so carefully maintained, started to buckle under the relentless assault. In the midst of the chaos, the Crusaders attempted to form defensive lines, hoping to protect their flanks and regroup. Knights in heavy armor charged at Saladin's forces, but the cavalry could not maneuver through the exhausted, disorganized ranks of their own men. Infantry lines, once disciplined and formidable, collapsed like sandcastles under the desert sun. Chaos spread through the army like wildfire, and with it, the inevitability of defeat became palpable. Raymond of Tripoli, the voice of reason who had warned against marching through the desert, tried to organize what remained of the army. He moved through the chaos, shouting encouragements, directing men to hold the high ground, to protect the flanks. But even his experience could not withstand the perfect orchestration of Saladin's plan. The Muslim forces were relentless. Light cavalry struck from unexpected angles. Archers never ceased their bombardment, and the ground seemed to conspire against the Crusaders. Water, or rather the lack of it, became as lethal as Saladin's sword. Soldiers, dehydrated and parched, stumbled and fell. Horses, their tongues hanging out and nostrils flaring, toppled under the unrelenting sun. Men tried to share water from canteens and skins, but supplies were woefully insufficient. Every soldier felt the desert burn within him as much as without. Their bodies betrayed them before the enemy could deliver a fatal blow. As the hours dragged on, the Crusaders attempted one last desperate maneuver. A cavalry charge was ordered, meant to break through the encirclement and reach the scattered water sources. Knights thundered forward, lances pointed, banners flying in defiance. But exhaustion slowed their charge. Horses stumbled, men fell, formations broke, and the charge ended in disaster. Soldiers who had survived the march were cut down by the waiting archers and cavalry. The dream of escape vanished in a haze of smoke, dust, and despair. The true cross, carried into battle as the most sacred symbol of the Crusader army, became a focal point of both hope and terror. Soldiers clung to it, believing its presence would protect them. But fate was not swayed by relics. Saladin's forces struck, the relic was captured, and the psychological blow was as devastating as the physical ones. The twin hills of Hattin, once merely geographical markers, became strategic anchors. The Crusaders tried to camp, forming a defensive position, but Saladin's forces surrounded them completely. Smoke from the fires drifted across the battlefield, obscuring vision and making coordination impossible. Knights and infantry alike were trapped in a furnace-like environment, caught between fire, enemy, and exhaustion. Every attempt to fight back seemed to be anticipated, every retreat blocked. By late afternoon, the Crusader army at Hattin was a shadow of its former self. Exhaustion, thirst, and smoke had already broken their ranks. King Guy of Lusignan and his commanders tried to rally what remained of their forces, but morale was gone, replaced by panic and despair. The twin hills that once promised a vantage now trapped them like a cage. Saladin's cavalry moved in with relentless precision. Archers continued their bombardment, cutting down soldiers who attempted to escape or regroup. Knights, once armored and proud, fell one by one, their charges failing against a perfectly orchestrated siege. The fires that Saladin had set burned closer, smoke thickening, suffocating men and horses alike. The desert had become a furnace, and the Crusaders were trapped inside. Amid the chaos, the true cross, the most sacred relic of the Crusader army, was captured. Its loss shattered any remaining hope. Soldiers looked on in disbelief. Their faith, once a shield against fear, now seemed powerless. The final moments were brutal. Reynald of Chatillon, notorious for his cruelty in the region, was executed on Saladin's orders, a grim warning to others. King Guy was captured alive, forced to witness the destruction of the army he commanded. Thousands of soldiers were killed or taken prisoner. Very few escaped the battlefield. Hattin was not merely a loss, it was a catastrophe that erased the Crusaders' power in the region. When the sun set over the battlefield, the hills were littered with the remnants of an army, broken weapons, fallen banners, scorched armor, and the exhausted bodies of men and horses alike. Saladin's forces stood victorious, not only through might of arms, but through careful strategy, patience, and a deep understanding of the terrain. The Battle of Hattin had proven that pride, poor planning, and underestimating one's enemy could lead to total destruction. The fall of Hattin set the stage for the capture of Jerusalem and changed the course of the Crusades forever. It was a lesson in strategy, resilience, and the brutal realities of war. A reminder that in battle, sometimes the environment and cunning matter more than courage or numbers. Want to see more legendary battles that changed history? Check out our videos on the Siege of Jerusalem and the Battle of Gaugamela, where strategy, courage, and betrayal shaped the world.
Subscribe to this channel for more stories like this.